What's up, YouTube? As the title suggests, back with another Trophy League voiceover. So if you're looking for some Death Shadow action of the Dimir-ish variety, then you've probably come to the right place. So before we get started, I have to pose a question to you. Have you ever played a matchup that was very popular, something you were seeing pretty frequent in the league, seeing in your local meta, whatever the case may be, and it was going so poorly, so consistently for you that you had to just reach for left field, find some obscure card to help you deal with that, even if nobody else got it, if it didn't make sense to the rest of the world, but it won you games? Would you do it? Would that be okay? Would you break the norms to try to gain a few percentage points there? Well, for me, that's currently the case with the Boros energy deck. So I was looking at my my testing results for Dimir, and I've been sitting at like a 77, 78%-ish win rate, except against Boros energy. Against that one deck, I was sitting at like 0 for 8, 0 for 9, something like that. Just could not beat it. Like, I would try to formulate a game plan, say, all right, I'm going to fight over Flage, and then just get run over by Guide of Souls into a Johnny, into Amped Raptor, then an Amulet. I'd say, okay, well, I'm going to fight over the cheap stuff. I'm going to bring in a bunch of Fatal Pushes, Deluges, Stern Scoldings, and then all of a sudden I'm dying to Unlicensed Hearse, into Fable of the Mirror Breaker, into Flage. And I'm like, okay, well, clearly that plan didn't work. Let me bring in some Grave Hate. All right, well, they never see Flage. I'm sitting here with like these Aether Gusts in hand, and they're playing Guide of Souls into a Johnny, into Felia, into Static Prison. Like, just it seemed every time I tried focusing on option A, they'd have option B. If I focused on B, they'd have C. If I focused on C, they'd have G. Didn't matter. Nothing seemed to work out for me. So I decided to go off the extreme end a little bit, a lot of bit, and try out a card called Suncleanser. So if you've never seen this card before, I don't fault you at all. I presented it in a couple Discords, and I'm pretty positive nobody there had ever heard of the card. But it's 1 and a white for a 1/4. When it enters the battlefield, you choose one. Either you remove all the counters from a creature, and that creature can't have counters put on it anymore, or you remove all counters from an opponent, and the opponent can't have counters anymore. Why does this matter? Because energy is given in the form of counters. They are energy counters. You can look at the reminder text on the card and see that. So my out-of-the-box thought here was, okay, if I've got a Suncleanser out, it shuts off Galvanic Discharge. They can't gain energy. They lose all the energy they have. They can't kill anything with Discharge. Shuts off Unstable Amulet. Amped Raptor doesn't trigger, or you can't cast something with Amped Raptor when you flip into it. Static Prison will exile something until their next first main phase, and then it comes back in because they don't have energy to pay to keep up Static Prison. Aether Hub doesn't get energy, can't tap for colored mana. What else am I forgetting? I know there's another one, but whatever. Being a 1/4, it doesn't die to Flage triggers. It stands in front of a Johnny and a Johnny token. Stands in front of Guide of Soul. Eats Amped Raptor for breakfast. Stands in front of Felia unless they blink it, you know. But that was my idea. It's like, hey, if I shut down Guide of Souls giving flying encounters, if I shut down Amped Raptor and Unstable Amulet being 2-for-1s, if I shut down Galvanic Discharge killing off my Tamios or maybe my Nethergoyfs, then maybe I can just like focus my counter spells on Flage and Fable. Maybe I can focus my removal spells on not letting a Johnny flip and just make the deck a little more one-dimensional. Because if you take away the energy, then they just have a bunch of derpy little creatures, right? Like a 2/1 First Strike Raptor and a 1/2 Guide and a 1/2 Johnny with a 2/1 token. Maybe they've got a 1/1 Ocelot Pride, something like that. But I can handle those things. But I can't handle it when all of their things become 2-for-1s or 3-for-1s or whatever. So I thought, why not? I'll give Suncleanser a try. Like, am I sitting here saying this is some staple of the deck? Absolutely not. But again, desperate times call for desperate measures. So back to the rest of the list. The same main deck 60 I trophied with yesterday. And then trophied again today. So pretty well believe in the main deck 60. Some of the things that I think get really, let's rewind just a hair. Some of the things I think get really jumped over. Tamiyo in this deck is a win condition. You can get value Tamiyo games and just like swing, make treasures or make clues, whatever. Crack them, draw a couple extra cards. But there are so many games that you are flipping Tamiyo on turn 2 with Mishra's Bauble, Street Wraith, Preordain, the clue that you make off Tamiyo, that it is so easy to just start ticking up and like protect Tamiyo for a few turns, turn her into a legitimate win condition. Nethergoyf has been phenomenal. You'll see a bunch of Nethergoyf this league. Love the card. Absolutely amazing pickup for Dimir. If you're wanting to play Murktide, I would recommend not running Nethergoyf. Murktide's still a great threat, but Nethergoyf coming down on like turn 1 a lot of the times is just a different sort of clock. They both get from point A to point B in about the same amount of time, but Nethergoyf like coming down, letting you just sit there and tempo counter your opponent out. It's really nice. The spot removal, pretty happy with. The 4 Fatal Push, the Dismember, Fell the Profane's been better than I thought it would be. Sink into Stupor, I've won a couple games off of it now. So that's about it for the main. Sideboard, Aether Gust has been a little bit for energy, but not much. It's mostly for like prowess. It's good against the go big green decks like Amulet Titan. It's good against Nadu. Stuff like that. Stern Scolding, any small creature deck. Flusterstorm, we know. Consign to Memory. I'm starting to see more Eldrazi and more Tron in the leagues. So Consign to Memory gets paired up with the 2 copies of Break the Ice. Really good in the Tron matchup. Really good in the Eldrazi matchup, especially if you can take out like an Ugin's Labyrinth, and you essentially get a 2-for-1 because you take out the Labyrinth, and if they exile a card, you get to take out that too. Just make sure you target the Labyrinth when they are tapped off of it, not when they have it up and they can put the card back in their hand. If you can avoid it. If you can't avoid it, just go ahead and break the ice to land. 2 Toxic Deluge has been all-stars. Legion's End definitely looks like a funky choice to people, but I've had a bunch of really funny lines with the card. Like, not only is it good for taking out undying threats and things like Yawgmoth, which we haven't seen a lot of, but it's still there. But I played against like Elves yesterday, and they played out a turn 1 Dork. I killed it. Turn 2, they just dropped down 2 Wirewood Symbiotes, and I had Legion's End kill both of them. Pretty nice. And then the 3 copies of Suncleanser, the card that nobody is expecting anything out of. But again, I wanted to bring it in to try it out for energy. And I have to specify before we jump into the games, just for Boros energy. That's it. Not for Jeskai with the wizard package. Not for your random run-of-the-mill X red deck that happens to be running Amped Raptor and Unstable Amulet. No. Boros energy, the aggro version with Guide of Souls, a Johnny, Amped Raptor, sometimes Ragavan, sometimes Ocelot Pride, Unstable Amulet, Felia, Flage. That deck. That's the only deck this is here for. If there's something else you bring it in against and you say, oh, this worked out pretty well, that's great. Props to you. That's not what I had it in here for. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into some of the matches. So maybe you can see some Dimir Shadow action and say, hey, I want to pick that deck up for my next RCQ. Oh, also a couple announcements. Sorry, I know the intro on this video is absurdly long. I apologize for that. We're going to get to the games. But two things to keep in mind. One, this upcoming Thursday is the first day of the Pro Tour. I think I'm going to do a watch party stream. I've never done a watch party stream before, but since it's modern, I thought it would be kind of fun to have people hang out, watch the Pro Tour together, commentate on everything. So I think I'm going to look at doing that. And then this one's not until like the middle, towards the end of July, like July 20th or something. My local store is doing like this overnight Magic lock-in, and they're trying to do a big modern tournament. I'm going to stream that modern tournament and broadcast it, do like all the commentary and whatnot for it. So if you're in the U.S., it's going to start at like 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, something like that. Really, really late, but it's supposed to be an overnight tournament. If you're over in like Europe, I think that ends up being like 6 a.m.-ish. So when you're getting up, getting ready for your day, it's going to be going on then. But yeah. All right, back to the Magic part. Or the Magic part you care about. First hand in the blind, opponent reveals Giganta. Good hand against the Giganta deck. Like Nethergoyf outgrowing Bolt really easily is a big upside. We've got a potential turn 2 flip Tamiyo. So if you have Tamiyo on turn 1, play out your Mishra's Bauble, pass the turn, Bauble on their turn, then you go back to your turn, you draw for turn, or you draw for Bauble, draw for turn, and then cycle Street Wraith, and you get to flip Tamiyo right there. So I really like hands that start off with that because that's just like, hey, here's a turn 1 proactive win condition. You got to do something about it. And in the case of having Wraith and Bauble, you don't have to invest any extra mana into flipping Tamiyo. It is 1 mana, flip it on turn 2. Just make sure if that's the line you're going to take, that after you draw for your Bauble and you draw for turn, attack with Tamiyo first. There's like no, see Tarfire on the opponent's side and they're going to end up bolting our Tamiyo, whatever. There's like no downside to attacking first, because if my opponent does let me like go to combat and plan on bolting my Tamiyo, then I can just respond to the bolt with Cycle Street Wraith and flip Tamiyo right then and there. But if I don't attack first, I don't get the clue, and especially in like mid-range grindy matchups like this, that clue can be a big deal. So we're going to play out our Nethergoyf, end up surveilling over a Thoughtseize, which grows our Goyf to a 4-5. Like a turn 2, 4-5, pretty good deal. Now, obviously, Tarmogoyf's bigger here, so Tarmogoyf enthusiasts are thrilled. But since we top deck into another Preordained Tamiyo, we get to just flip the Tamiyo right here, which is great. Like, hey, we're not only going to deal with your Tarmogoyf, we're going to hit you for 5. We're going to flip our Tamiyo, which again makes another win condition. We could buy back a removal spell next turn if we don't sit on counterspell and like try to work towards an ultimate. So here I attack into the token. If my opponent had not blocked, then I would just be minusing Tamiyo, like getting back the Fatal Push, kill the token, sit on counterspell. But because they did block, then we're just going to keep ticking up Tamiyo. Because, like, why not, right? Thoughtseize. I decided to go with the counterspell instead of the Stubborn Denial there. I should have gone with the stub, but my thought was I want to hold the mana efficient option as long as I can. Like, I don't really care if they play a creature because Nethergoyf's blocking and I'm just going for a Tamiyo ult at this point. But I should have played the stub on the Thoughtseize and held up the counterspell. which thankfully it didn't really matter here. I also didn't want to let that Thoughtseize go because I would rather hold on to my Fell the Profane than a Stubborn Denial there. And as we can see, top decking a land, that was probably a good choice. I also could have Fell the Profane the Tarmogoyf and attacked in for 5, but with them flipping the Reflection and having the Nihil Spellbomb, they could have just shut off my Nethergoyf at any point, so that attack didn't really matter. So now I'm just like 100% on the game plan of protect Tamiyo. Like, don't worry about Nethergoyf, don't worry about getting in the damage, just protect Tamiyo here. So we are going to Fell the Profane, a Tarmogoyf. And again, I do want to point out that, like, at any point during this, if we had wanted to buy back some spells, we could have probably had a decent chance at winning that way. Now, after the fact, since they Saga'd up a Nihil Spellbomb, I'm really glad that I focused on just ticking up Tamiyo. But I wouldn't fault anybody for just like not going for the ultimate and going for buying some stuff back. But against 2/2s, it's important to know that like Tamiyo's ticking up for 2, and then they're ticking down 1 point of damage by attacking at you because they get -1/-0 from Tamiyo. Here, just going for the Tamiyo ult. I could Thoughtseize first, but if they have a Bowmaster, they're just going to flash in the Bowmaster, and I have nothing that I can do against the Bowmaster. So it's the same result if I just ultimate the Tamiyo if they have the Bowmaster. But if they don't have the Bowmaster, then I just save myself a mana and 2 life. And this is the power of the Tamiyo ult. It's like from here, you can find some way to win. Like, oh, I see Shadow, Thoughtseize, Stubborn Denial, Drown in the Loch, Dismember. So I could just go like Shadow, dismember your Reflection, play a land, pass. And now I'm sitting with Drown in the Loch, Stub, Force of Negation up. And that's not even all the cards I have in hand. So that's the Tamiyo ult effect. The ult doesn't directly say I win the game, but it says, yo, I can probably find something to do from here. Sideboarding against Jun's Saga. A lot of trimming. Trim a Force Negation because I don't really want to play cards at 2-for-1 myself. Trim a Street Wraith. Trim a Thoughtseize. Just, I got to be a little considerate with my life total against decks with like Bowmaster, Tarmogoyf, Ragavan. And then I'm boarding in. What did I board in this one? What did I board in? I don't know. We'll find out. The important thing is I did not board in Suncleanser. Because again, not for this matchup. Oh, Aether Gust and Legion's End. Aether Gust is good from stopping like a Wrenn and 6 from ulting. Just resetting a Tarmogoyf. So I'm passing with my Fatal Push here, mainly because I think if my opponent had a Veil of Summer, they would have just led on a Green Source turn 1 and like held up mana, but they didn't. They led on Dragon's Rage Channeler into me likely having a removal spell. So I'd rather just sit on the Fatal Push and try to push like a Tarmogoyf than proactively push a Dragon's Rage Channeler. They don't really care about like derpy little 1/1. You know what I mean? Lava Spurt Boots. I was waiting to see if they would equip, and they didn't. So we'll just be mana efficient, kill off the Channeler there. Now we get to hold up Counter Spell. Lightning Bolt we don't care about. It's really super important in these like value matchups to take advantage of when things matter and when things don't. Like, a 1/1 Channeler is probably rarely going to matter. Lightning Bolt basically never matters. Now, obviously, if my entire game plan is play and flip Tamiyo, then Lightning Bolt matters a little more. But I've got a Shadow here. I've got like some stuff to do, so that shouldn't be my entire game plan. Now here I'm just thinking like, okay, my opponent's kind of drawing dead. I'll just give them the Tamiyo, get the Bolt out of hand, and plan on finishing this game with Shadow and Counterspell. Shadows and Counterspell. Now, I could play out double Shadow, but my opponent just, like, has 2 mana, an unknown card. They could have a Bowmaster. I haven't seen Bowmaster yet out of them, so it's not a card I want to be, like, super afraid of. Make a token, you got it. Now I'm kind of planning on just, like, taking a hit off of something here to get Shadow online. Shadow Spear is fine. Now, if they're not equipping up the... I can't remember if the Shadow Spear is 2 mana. It might be 2 mana to equip Shadow Spear. But if it is, then a point doesn't really stand. But if it's only 1 mana, then them not equipping Shadow Spear means they probably have something. Then just going ahead and bobbling them because I've got the counter spell, so if they go for a Bowmaster, I can fight over it. Push is fine. Push is fine on my side. So many pushes. Then here, I'm just going to let them hit me with this construct. I could, like, try to be cheeky and block and let them trample over for 3 and grow the Shadow. Which I appreciate those lines, but at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that your opponent goes for it. They could just assign all the damage to Shadow. So it is like a pretty risky line if you don't have to do it. Let the Thoughtseize resolve, so it makes it a 1-turn clock if I can find like a counter spell or something. And there we go. If I didn't find the counterspell, I would not be fetching and shocking here because I don't want to give my opponent a chance to just like double bolt me out. I don't want to give my opponent a chance to double bolt me out. So if we can talk about that turn real quick. If I didn't draw the Stubborn Denial, I'm probably just attacking with the Shadow and not attacking with the Nethergoyf, because I don't want my opponent to like top deck a Tarmogoyf, strap up a Lava Spur Boots, and attack in. So maybe it's even just attack with a Nethergoyf, keep the bigger Shadow back. But I just don't want to put myself in a position to like die to a top deck. When it doesn't change the clock. Big contingency there. Like if I hit them for 5, then I hit them for 12 next turn. That's the same as if I hit them for 8 and then 12 next turn. Still a 2-turn clock. Doesn't matter there. Again, a flip Tamiyo on turn 2 hand. A little bit funkier with the Mishra's Baubles, but you know, do what you do. I could have bobbled myself there and played out the Sink into Stupor if I saw something on top that I wanted, but I was kind of thinking, oh, this might be like a Chalice of the Void matchup. I might want to hold Sink into Stupor in hand to take out a Chalice of the Void. Then here we get to go ahead and flip Tamiyo. Held that 3rd bauble around to give me a little filtering with the fetch land. Knoll Drifter. I hardly know her. Classic Magic the Gathering humor there. So getting a little flooded out here. We do have Sink into Stupor to like interact with something on the stack. So even if they Cavern of Souls it, we can still like fight a little bit. This is what we're going to do here. We know that one of their last cards is a Devourer. They currently only have 3 mana up and they've played a land, so they can't recast the Thought-Knot Seer. That's not a Thought-Knot Seer. So what I was hoping was that I would Sink into Stupor the Thought-Knot. They wouldn't be able to recast it. I'd go to my turn, take up Tamiyo again, maybe find like a Thoughtseize for the Devourer, and then Ultimate Tamiyo the next turn. But unfortunately, they did just have a play after the Thought-Knot, and then Devourer takes out Tamiyo, so at that point I'm just sitting around with a Nethergoyf and nothing I can really do. A whole bunch of lands in hand, so we scoop it up, get a game 2. Sideboarding against the Eldrazi. I did board out a couple Fatal Pushes. This version appears to be a little lower to the ground with Line Breaker, so I wouldn't fault you for keeping an extra Fatal Push or 2 in. But for the most part, just like a couple Fatal Pushes, couple Drowns out, couple Consign to Memories, and a couple Break the Ices in. We got Tomato, we've got Nethergoyf. Lead on Thoughtseize. Luckily gets rid of this Chalice, so now I have like a little game. It that heralds the inn, makes their 7 drops cheaper. Also gives all of their colorless creatures +1/+1. Now I feel really smart for holding up the bauble and not cracking it earlier because my opponent thinks they can get a free little attack in here. And we say, no, no, no. We're going to fetch with our bauble, eat up the it that heralds the end. I'm going to learn this card one day. Probably not. Definitely want to keep a Break the Ice. Flip our Tamiyo. We did know about the Reality Smasher. But still, it's kind of okay. We've got a replacement Tamiyo. We've got to kill the Temple. I do not want to play out the second Tamiyo there because I don't want to go down to 5 life off of this Reality Smasher hit. Because I'm staring down a Line Breaker if they find red mana. I just like don't want to put myself in a position to just be dead. Funny how often that happens with Shadow. Like, hey, what's the plan? Oh, the plan's to not die. Seems pretty straightforward. Fell the Profane, good at taking out a Reality Smasher. So the hope here is that if they do find a red mana for like Line Breaker, that maybe they haste up it or the Mimic. I get to trade with it, kill the Reality Smasher. Another Nethergoyf is really, really nice. And we're just going to chill on Stubborn Denial for like All Is Dust or Kozilek's Command, something like that. But our Nethergoyfs being 5/6s gets there. And remember, like, I've harked on the point multiple times before, and I still don't think people believe it. A 1 mana, like 3/4 or 4/5 Nethergoyf is insane by itself. Now, you're going to have games that it gets to a 5/6. Not so much in this game getting to a 6/7 or in this deck, but you could have it happen if you want to. I don't think that extra like point or 2 really matters. 1 mana 6/7 is cool. 1 mana 5/6 is great. 1 mana 4/5 is still phenomenal. Be okay with it. Don't make yourself play a bunch of bad cards to get Necker or Nethergoyf from a 4/5 to a 5/6. Alright, first hand had no black mana and Break the Ice, so pretty easy ship. Second hand has double black mana and Break the Ice, so like easier keep. See a Fatal Push on top of our library, since we know this is like a slightly more aggressive variation, then I think keeping the second Fatal Push is fine. I think I boarded back into like the third and fourth Fatal Push game 3 because we saw Eldrazi Mimic and It That Heralds the End. Also thought this was pretty cool, that they could reduce the cost of Evoke on Null Drifter with It That Heralds the End. I did not think about that, so. Take away Chalice, leave them with a Thought Knot, which they can't cast, and opponent decides to scoop it up in the face of our Nethergoyf that is bigger than their stuff. So I'm assuming they just like drew another land or something and thought, oh, they must not care about the Thought Knot if they're taking it. But either way, on to match number 3. Wait. Brothers, is it Suncleanser time? Did we find the matchup? It appears to be. Amped Raptor down, Guide of Souls on the battlefield. Our opponent's got a Galvanic Discharge and a Ranger Captain of Eos. So we're holding up Drown to try to fight over like another Amped Raptor off the top or an Ajani or something like that, instead of playing out a Nethergoyf. I really just don't want things to snowball. My opponent's on like a Mold of 5. They've got a 3-drop in hand with 1 land. What I don't want to happen is me to just like give them a window to get back into it, to get a bunch of value on the board, to get an Amulet down, get a Johnny or Raptor into something. So I would like to hold up Drown in the Loch if I can. Now we know they have Discharge, so I don't want to just like play out Tamiyo for free. I'd rather play Tamiyo out on a turn that I can make them use the mana on their turn to deal with Tamiyo, instead of just get like the free roll, end of turn, kill my Tamiyo, untap, have all your mana available. Alright, sideboarding against Energy. Wraiths, Thoughtseize, some number of those are coming out. It's an aggressive creature matchup. They're Guide of Souls, Raptor, maybe Ocelot, maybe a Johnny, maybe Ragavan, whatever. But they're turn dudes sideways, so your life total is always going to be in jeopardy. Stern Scolding's a great one coming in. The 3 Suncleansers are coming in. The 2 Toxic Deluge are coming in. I think that's about everything. You could bring in Aether Gust if you really wanted to. I'm not a huge Aether Gust believer. Now here we've got a no land 1-lander. Stay with me. No land 1-lander with Fel the Profane giving us 1 piece of our mana. And I figure with double Bobble and a Wraith, we should be able to find a second land to get Suncleanser online. Now, this is one of the considerations for Suncleanser, is like, hey, I'm turn 2 on the draw. My opponent's got 4 power on board. They might be able to start like giving stuff flying if I don't get Suncleanser down. Which, obviously we missed the fetch land, so we can't get our Hallowed Fountain for Suncleanser. And this is kind of what happens when your opponent snowballs out of control. So this is like what I'm trying to prevent. If we'd had turn 2 Suncleanser, then that Raptor wouldn't do anything. The Guide wouldn't get flying. And I'd be able to just like clog up the board. Or start clogging up the board against creatures that don't really matter. Opening hand had, I think, like 4 lands and a Sink into Stupor or something. So really slow. This one, again, really banking on finding that second land so we can Suncleanser. Get rid of the Ragioli. We just want land for counterspell at the very least. Preordain finds a land, but again, it's not a white source. Comes into play tapped. You know what would be really good at taking care of their energy and standing in front of an Ocelot Pride? A Suncleanser. You know what would have shut down that amulet there from finding a third land for them? Suncleanser. See where I'm going with this? So we're just going to kill off the Ocelot Pride. Unfortunately, like, we just can't have them snowballing the Pride out of control. We say as they find another Ocelot Pride. And find a fetch land. Alright, so now we can get Suncleanser down. Kind of shut off more of the energy production. And spoiler alert, when I played out the Suncleanser there, I played out Suncleanser first, so if they had a Galvanic Discharge in hand, they wouldn't be able to use it. Like, if I played out the Shadow first and then played Suncleanser, they could discharge my Shadow with their open mana, and then Suncleanser doesn't do anything. So we play out the Suncleanser first to stop that, since they can't discharge the Suncleanser. Or, you do have to remember, like, Suncleanser enters and creates an ETB trigger. They can respond to that ETB trigger with Galvanic Discharge on the Suncleanser. So I had to make sure it was a point where they didn't have any energy in their pool, since they can't make 4 off the Galvanic Discharge. And then, again, playing the Shadow first. So we got a Ranger Captain, Esper Sentinel, now an Ajani that I do not want to see the light of day. Suncleanser standing in front of a Ranger Captain and an Esper Sentinel pretty well. I want to save this Dismember for the Reflection. Like, Ranger Captain's good, Esper Sentinel's annoying. Reflection copying Ranger Captain is just going to end the game. So that's where I want to focus my removal. I could, like, try to be cheeky and target the Ranger Captain whenever they go to copy it, but I don't know when that's going to be. And I don't want to just hold up 2 mana from now until the end of time, waiting for them to go for the Ranger Captain copy and pay for the Esper Sentinel. So I spent like 30 seconds here making sure that Esper Sentinel wasn't a cat, and I just didn't know it. So they couldn't flip a Johnny. Top deck Fatal Push is amazing because I get to attack in. So let's go through this sequence. I attacked in. They started with sack Ranger Captain, because they wanted to sack Ranger Captain and then just get like the free block with the Cat Warrior to flip their Ajani and maybe be able to ping me out next turn. I responded to the sack of the Ranger Captain with Fatal Push on the Ajani. They tried to respond to the Fatal Push with Galvanic Discharge, their own Cat Warrior token, to flip Ajani. But they couldn't, because they couldn't get energy, because Suncleanser is an MVP. Boom. So, proof of concept, as Aspiring Spikes chat would say. On to match number 4. We see a Thoughtseize off the top of our library, which sounds like something I'm pretty interested in, so we'll keep that around. Basic Swamp Go, so I have no idea what we're up against. Maybe some sort of like Cabal Coffers deck. But Cabal Coffers not having like a Thoughtseize or a Scam or something on turn 1's kind of funky. Into turn Fatal Push. I'm mostly just countering this because it grows the Nethergoyf and speeds up my clock. And it's only turn 2. If there's something I really cared about on turn 2, I'd probably just let it go. I should have gone to combat first and then cycled the Street Wraith. Like, try to get them to block and cycle the Street Wraith. But on the other side of that, they probably wouldn't block, because I'm just like 1 card type away from Nethergoyf eating Sorin. And if I Street Wraith Thoughtseize before combat, then in this case I grow Tarmogoyf for a couple extra points of damage, which is effectively a whole nother turn off the clock. With Thoughtseize, and we see double Shieldred. So they have double Shieldred and an Unknown. Flash in a Bowmaster. I decided to let the Bowmaster go because it doesn't really affect my clock that much, and I'm still out racing them. And I think I'd rather keep drowning the lock around for Shieldred, because if I don't have an answer to that, I'm just not beating it. Get a little flooded here. Them attacking with Sorin's a pretty clear case that they don't have another land for Shieldred, which Thoughtseize obviously confirms. Kill the Bowmaster so I can attack in freely with Nethergoyf, really put their life in jeopardy. So like now with the new Nethergoyf, if they did find a land and play out Shieldred this turn, I could attack in with both the Nethergoyfs, eat the Sorin, kill off the Shieldred, and then just get back the Nethergoyf that traded with the Shieldred, and I'd have a lethal attack through another Shieldred next turn. So, good deal. Game 2, sideboarding. I don't think I had sideboarded too much. Like, boarded out a couple Wraiths, a Thoughtseize, and or a couple Wraiths, a couple Thoughtseize, because it's a Thoughtseize mirror. Brought in Toxic Deluge because we saw not only Shieldred, Bowmaster, Sorin, maybe they have, we saw Grief. So there's a really good chance they're going to go kind of wide on the board. See that they're like a Soul Spike deck, so probably Necro Dominance. Oh look, it's a wild flipped Tamiyo. Again on turn 2. Crazy. Now we'll get down to Shadow, hold up Counter Spell. It's the turn. Alright, yeah, so they go for a March of Otherworld, or March of Wretched Sorrow, leaving up, or exiling Soul Spike and Toxic Deluge. I should have just let this go, because they're targeting Tamiyo. I should have just let that go and, like, won with the Shadow. But my thought was, oh, if they play like Shieldred here, then I just get to take up Tamiyo, deluge the Shieldred, and then I'm like kind of golden to ultimate Tamiyo next turn. I've got Fatal Push to kill a Bowmaster. But then they just had another Shieldred, and that kind of threw that entire plan out of whack. So I think in hindsight, I should have just let them kill the Tamiyo, take the Shadow plus like the removal spells and the counter spells, counter the Shieldred, and then just like cruise in from there. So good learning point. Nethergoyf go bonk. Getting a little flooded here. Bowmaster is fine. Let's go ahead and kill that now before they have a chance to untap with like an Undying effect. And it puts another, or puts a card in the yard so that maybe Drown in the Lock can do something in the future. Preordain's pretty good. They could follow it up with a Bowmaster, but honestly I don't care about that much. It's like the army token's still not bigger than the Nethergoyf. The Nethergoyf is growing thanks to the sorcery being added to the yard. So like I still get to attack, and in this case I still get to play out Shadow, hold up Counterspell. Which is why I don't care about this either. Like if they want to ping me, fine. I am ready to tango with a 4/4 Orc army token. Shieldred's Edict there. I could have countered the Shieldred's Edict, But my biggest fear was exactly this. Follow-up Fatal Push to kill my Shadow. Because if they Edict my Nether... If I counter the Edict and they follow up Fatal Push, then they're just attacking for 5. My Nether Goyf is not big enough to close out the game very quickly. So instead, we do whatever we can to keep the Shadow alive, which is just sack off the Nether Goyf, play for the follow-up Fatal Push, which we were fortunate enough to find. And now I just have a Shadow plus a Drown in the Lock and find another Nether Goyf, and life is good, and blah, 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 blah. Attack in, play Nether Goyf. Could escape the other Nether Goyf, but I think just playing a new one's probably better. Oh, this was fun. Toxic Deluge, unlike Energy, is a very fair and balanced Magic card. Because not only do you have to pay the life when you cast the card, but you have to say exactly how much you're paying when this card goes on the stack. So knowing that my opponent is paying 6 life, and knowing that my Shadow is a 6/6 and I have a fetch land on the battlefield, I can just fetch up a tapped Undercity Sewers in this case. If my Goyf lives, great. I don't think it will because I don't think I have 6th card type. But I know my Shadow will live and go back to a 7/7 on my turn. I got Drown in the Lock. Now, my thought here is they probably have a Soul Spike and double black card in hand. And they're hoping that I will fetch and shock down to 4. And they'll just get to go Soul Spike, kill you. But since I go to 6, even if they have a Soul Spike, they can hit me for 4, down to 2, gain 4, go up to 11. Shadow grows to an 11/11 because I'm down to 2 life and it's still lethal. Now they could Soul Spike the Shadow, gain 4 life, but they lose their entire hand to not get rid of the Shadow, not kill me, and I still have lethal the next turn. So their choice if that's what they want to do. On to match number 3, YungDingo for the trophy match. Oh, and it's Merfolk. Why does it have to be Merfolk? Why do I have to have triple counter spell, Sink into Stupor, Drown in the Lock against the not fetching deck? Alright, Fatal Push is good. Fatal Push is really good. They don't have a second land. So if I can stabilize long enough to Sink into Stupor the Aether Vial, then I could have a chance here. Bend the Shadow because it's not doing anything for me anytime soon. Pick up 4th Counterspell because I'm really bad at drawing Magic cards. And that's clearly not the one I would like to have. But then they find the second land, and that probably means game over for me. I don't have time to set up the Sink the Stupor bouncing the Aether Vial. Here's our 1/1 Shadow. Now, we are aggressively counterspelling anything that I get the chance to. I need to use these counterspells. Unfortunately, we cannot counter the Dismember there. And Harbinger shuts us out of the game, so yeah, unless they don't attack and cast a bunch of stuff into counterspells, I'm probably dead, probably going to game 2. So let's do that. Sideboarding, we've got a bunch of stuff like Stubborn Denial, Force Negation, Counterspell. They're all pretty bad. We've got some Toxic Deluges to bring in. We got Legion's End. But really, it's just going to be a matchup where my entire goal is resolve Toxic Deluge. This was really fun, though. I got to Thoughtseize them and take their second land because they had an island and a Sink into Stupor, and that was it. So we took the Sink into Stupor, try to see if exactly this could happen. They would just miss land drops for a few turns, and we could maybe tempo a little bit. They do find a Vial. Hopefully that Vial is too little too late. And with the second copy of Nethergoyf, there's a good chance it will be. especially since we have Deluge. And yeah, scoop it up there because they got a handful of 2-drops, a Vial on 1 and 1 land. And we get to go to game 3. So now we know Thought Seizing a land, pretty nice. Honestly, this is about as good of a hand as you're going to get against Merfolk. Like, I wouldn't mind one of the cards in here being another, like, Fatal Push. But just presenting a big, quick clock and maybe finding something off the Street Wraith and the Bauble, that's about all I can ask for. Is it perfect? No. So there's the Fatal Push. Okay. If you saw me bobble myself there, you saw Force of Negation on top. The reason Force of Negation is in here is they have Flare of Denial in their deck. We saw it game 2. They have Aether Vial, and I'm on the draw. And Force of Negation was better than Stubborn Denial on the draw, and I didn't have enough things that I could cut. So, there you go. That's my long-winded explanation. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Let's get down a couple chunky boys. We've got Street Wraith and Thoughtseize that can both kind of grow the Nethergoyfs. Fatal Push grows them. Toxic Deluge grows them, and then shrinks them, and then grows them again. Harbinger of the Tides to bounce my Nethergoyf, which is A-okay with me because, hey, I can replay it. Thankfully, it's not like a Murktide where it takes a bunch of mana to get it back onto the battlefield. And yeah, Nethergoyf tempo. So, let's talk about the league. First off, Suncleanser did its job and beat the Boros Energy deck. Now, if we'd seen it game 2 before they went off with a bunch of Raptors and the Guide of Souls, I think it would have looked a lot better. But at the end of the day, it still won game 3 because they couldn't use energy and couldn't like amulet or discharge or stuff like that. So I am in no way, and I have to stress it so much because Magic players take everything you do so literally and so seriously. Somebody sees the list and they're like, oh, Suncleanser, automatic 3 of. Cntrlfreak says the best card in Modern, and you have to play it if you want to beat Boros. No. No, 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 no. Literally playing Suncleanser because I was desperate to try out something to try to hose Boros energy. If it does, great. If it doesn't, great. No expectations of the card. But I do think it does something positive in the matchup. And if you're like me and you're 0-8 or something stupid against the deck, maybe give it a shot. Who knows? Deluge, great. Break the Ice, great. Consign to Memory. I'd never see Consign to Memory. Like, I think I've played against Eldrazi or Tron maybe like a half dozen times, and I don't think I've ever seen Consign to Memory post board. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't play it, just means it's not there. Flusterstorm is almost exclusively a nod to Ruby Storm being so popular. That being said, I'm like 10-1 or something against Ruby Storm, and the only match we lost was to Spider Space when we kept a no-lander. So I think that matchup's like phenomenally good for us. I don't think you need to sideboard a bunch of stuff or like really try to tech for Ruby Storm. Just play your normal game plan. You'll beat them. We did see a win with Tamiyo ult. I think we saw another win that we would have ulted but didn't get to finish the game. But still, I think it's so easy to flip Tamiyo on turn 2. And she can just be... I've gotten so many free wins off the back of like a turn 2 flip Tamiyo. I am 100% a believer in the card. And it's because it gives you this ability to fight in a way that the rest of your deck doesn't. And once you like alter, good luck opponents. But it's also really cool because you get that Tamiyo flip and then just start countering and fighting over anything you possibly can. Because if you believe you're going to get to ultimate that Tamiyo, you're going to refill those cards. They don't matter. Counter Thoughtseize on you, counter Lightning Bolt to your face, whatever. Just use your cards because you're going to refill them. Yeah, other than that, Dimir Shadow is great. If you want to find a deck that's fun and modern right now, pick it up, give it a shot, see how it does for you. Other than that, hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your day. Stay safe, enjoy some good food and company. I'll catch y'all back on the next video. Adios for now.